So we flew over. We covered pretty much the entire burn site. We saw the devastation. The houses burned right to the ground. I think you all seen the pictures if you haven't seen it yourself. And we saw houses right next door that were, at least from fairly close, appeared to be untouched. So our heart certainly goes out to the people. We just went and talked to a number of people over at the middle school who were, have lost everything they own, all their clothing, their furniture, a lifetime of photos, and there's no way anyone's going to be able to replace that for them. And no, it's a hard. I was impressed that the people's spirits were fairly upbeat, given all that they've been through. What else?
Governor, your thoughts about, unfortunately, they determined that, I guess, some software malfunction prevented some of the people from getting the reverse calls to evacuate. About 12% they're estimating did not get calls. Does that concern you, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I think that what we want to make certain of is that we use this tragic event we mine it for every bit of information we can to improve our systems and to be testing our systems so those malfunctions don't happen. And everything from all the different protocols and processes by which we do these burns to making sure that we have the right training and procedures ready to go, that we're accurately assessing the conditions, that we make sure all of our technology is in good operating condition. I mean, we're going to do a very, very thorough assessment of all of that.
Governor, what's the biggest question on your mind right now that you've been here and seen firsthand what happened?
Well, obviously I have a great sense of urgency about wanting to get as much information as I can of exactly what happened, what the timeline was, where are those places that we can improve our processes and our procedures, and make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that we don't have this kind of damage. We recognize, everybody knows this, that it doesn't matter whether you believe in climate change or not, but we are seeing very unusual weather, not just in this country but all over the world. And certainly many people have predicted that this is going to make Colorado a drier place with probably less of a snowpack. If that's the case, we need to be rethinking and aggressively challenging what our assumptions have been, and do we need to change them, right? Maybe they're perfect, but we better be rethinking them and working through them and challenging every basic assumption we start with to make sure we're doing everything we can to limit this kind of tragic situation.
When you were talking with the people who were affected, what did they want to know from you, or you were just listening to them?
Well, I tried to listen, but I also, I did get a lot of questions, and the questions were, a lot of people want to know when could they get back into their homes and see it. A lot of the people on Kester Road whose homes did not burn, they've got medications, they've got other things in their home that they need to get to, so we're going to try and figure out a way that they can get back there to get things from their home. There was a lot of, people that were upset just that this happened, and isn't there something, shouldn't it have been avoided, what are you going to do about it, that kind of stuff.
So how did you respond to that? What are you going to
Told them what I just told you, right? We're going to get every single fact we can, and with a great sense of urgency, try to look at every procedure, every process we did, every assumption we made, make sure that if we made mistakes, let's figure out what the mistakes were and correct them and have the process better. If we did everything right, then we have to look at it again and say, all right, do we want to change any of those, right? I think that the key here is to not rush to judgment, is to try and make sure that we operate from a fact-based place and allow ourselves to make good decisions.
What's the state going to do to make this right for the homeowners who lost their homes?
Well, and also I've talked to a bunch of them, and not all of them. I don't know how. Most of them have insurance. At least everyone I talk to is fully insured. I'm not sure they're again, I wasn't. I didn't get. I mean, I can't. We can't replace the photos of a lifetime, right? I think that for a long time, our system, people who work for counties and municipalities and for the state, since they're not working to make a profit, right? They're not out there with a private profit motive. It's assumed that their intentions are good, right? They're trying to do the best thing for the community. If they make a mistake and there's a problem happens, that means we as a community, as a state, have to analyze: do we want every county, every municipality in the state to carry large amounts of insurance so that we're protected against these? Because people are human, right? But there are going to be mistakes in all different fields, right? Driving vehicles, right? How we react to a flood or a fire. And when those mistakes happen, and I'm not, again, let's wait till we have the facts on this issue. But as a community, we have to decide: do we want our counties and our municipalities and our state to be paying taxes to insurance companies to protect us against these when a mistake happens? Because it's our tax money. And I think that's the question. People have to decide: do we want to spend our tax money making sure that when a government official, a county person, a municipal worker, if they make a mistake, that the person who suffers from that mistake can be fully compensated?
What's the future for controlled burns through the rest of the spring and the summer?
Well, we asked to suspend them, certainly on all state land and wherever the State Forest Service operates, just to evaluate and, again, look at these procedures and processes, the protocols, do the best job we can of assessing the conditions, right? What is the moisture content of the ground cover? Again, I think there's good science that these prescribed burns do protect much larger fires from happening. What I want to know, and I don't know, and I just want to see the real facts of what are the cutoff points in terms of different conditions. At what time do you decide this is not acceptable? At this time it is okay, and that's what we're trying to get to.
Is there a timeline for you getting that information, or any kind of timeline on maybe lifting this ban?
Pretty much what I've said, my timeline is yesterday, right? So how do we get that information as rapidly as possible? It'll take a few weeks. I mean, I think the problem often is that you rush to judgment when something tragic occurs. People make decisions sometimes too quickly. I'd rather, again, I'm not going to wait 3 months, but I would like to take a couple of weeks, several weeks, and really try to get all the information and look at what other states have done. What are we doing? Is there a way we can improve what we've been doing based on the outcomes other states see?
Governor, how hard was it for you to be away when this first flared up?
Well, I was on this economic development trip in Mexico, so they had us booked literally from 7 o'clock in the morning right through till 10 o'clock at night, meetings. So what happened was I would leave the meeting a little early and be a little late for the next one, and I would be, the amazing thing about these BlackBerries, right, is that there is no limit to how much information, well, there's somewhat of a limit, how fast you can read, but I was in pretty close to constant communication with my senior staff, Roxanne White and her team, the Lieutenant Governor. They were very focused on, making sure that I had real-time information to be able to, help them in assessing, what the next step is. I thought one of the things that was most sobering was to see how fast that fire spread, right? It went from where it started to the kind of far northeastern point in about 3 hours. I mean, that should be a very sobering thing for everyone, right? I mean, whether that fire, regardless of the direction, that wind can move. If you get a strong wind and there's a fire that gets started anyway, someone burning leaves or a lightning strike or whatever, it moves that fastly and can be that devastating. It's very sobering. I will tell you, to get back to answering the question, it's one of the hardest things I've had to do in public service, is to be far away and getting the information and yet not being able to be there to see it. And it's one thing to see stuff on a screen, on an iPad or on your BlackBerry. It's another thing to actually be here, and that's why I wanted to come back.
We haven't seen much smoke since Monday. From your aerial tour, I mean, did it seem like they have more than just 15% of this fire contained?
Well, I think containment is a technical term, and I'll let them, the Forest Service folks, can talk about that. certainly it was very reassuring to see that there was not smoke coming from a large number of places. We didn't see any open flame. There are a lot of personnel on the ground. The helicopters are being directed right to making sure that water is where it's going to do the most good. I mean, I think they've done an incredible job. I mean, the firefighters were down with the Red Cross, their entire team. Patricia Billinger was there. She's put together a team of largely volunteers who've just done a remarkable job. I think Ted Mink, the sheriffs, we saw a number of law enforcement personnel making sure that no one was going in and ransacking people's homes. I think it is, again, this is one of the reasons why the United States is the United States, right? I mean, we have a huge number of trained people that are out there doing their jobs and doing a great job, and it's very reassuring. It should be reassuring to people.
The federal government has plans to do some more controlled burning on federal land. Do you have any, are you wanting them to take a second look as well and maybe stop what they're doing, or are you really more focused on examining the state's policies?
Well, someone asked me that earlier today, and I'm certainly going to be very careful about talking about the interaction between state government and federal government. But, you know, when you have this kind of unusual weather, high winds coming up seemingly out of nowhere, you know, unlike what we've seen in years past, I am certainly going to urge an extra level of caution. I don't have the authority to tell them they can't do it, but I'm going to strongly urge an increase in caution.
And then getting back to this point about making homeowners whole, I guess what I heard you start to say there was there's a reason the state has immunity from lawsuits like that.
Right. I mean, it's a decision that the community, the state, made many years ago. And we as a state, if we want to reopen that discussion, right, do we as a state want to pay a little more taxes and make sure that our counties and our municipalities and our state are all fully insured for any liability from human error, then we should decide that, right? I mean, that's a decision we make. We decided long ago we'd rather make sure we all have our own insurance and do the best we can and cover ourselves and not spend that money, you know, insuring, you know, set a cap, and beyond that cap, not carry additional insurance. It would be, I mean, it would be, I don't know, I don't even know how to estimate. It would be many, many, many millions of dollars if these caps were in place. I mean, tens, probably hundreds of millions of dollars.
We have time for a few more questions, please.
From what you saw today, I mean, what do you think we're in for the rest of the summer?
Well, it's hard to predict the weather, right? And that's especially, it seems like over these last few years, we're having what they call weird weather, right? Strange weather, unpredictable weather. We're having, you know, hurricane season extending longer, starting earlier, all kinds of disruptions. And that does not bode well for forest fires. You combine that with the beetle kill and the amount of fuel that's in our forests, you've got to be very concerned. A couple of people have asked me, well, why haven't you taken more of the beetle kill out of the forests? We're not talking a few thousand acres, right? We're not talking a few 100,000 of acres. We're talking millions of acres. We're talking, that would be billions of dollars. We're faced with some difficult decisions. And one thing that flying over that you can see is that, and there are exceptions, but those folks that are clearing the trees away, I mean, I think we need to do a much stronger job, and we'll have a sense of urgency about this as well, to make sure that people have defensible space, right? That we clear away ground cover, we make sure that there aren't trees close to the house. That we are, as much as possible, if there is a fire, diminishing the probability that people will lose their homes.
Do you have any words of advice or caution for citizens and vacationers coming into the state in terms of how dry it is?
Well, obviously, I think we want everybody to exercise a measure of vigilance and caution. And it's unusually dry, and these variable wind conditions, I mean, we've always had wind, but a number of people have for the last couple of years noticed that or observed that there seems to be a wider and more rapid change in the wind. Again, we just want everyone to exercise extreme caution.
You only got to meet with a handful of the evacuees today. What do you want to say to the rest that you didn't get to meet with?
Well, the same thing is just flying over that area and seeing firsthand the level of loss that people lost. I mean, there's nothing left. Just the foundations in many cases. I just wanted to let them know that we will do everything we can to try and support them, get them back on their feet, make sure that the county, I think Jefferson County is full speed out on I mean, they have staff already identified and making sure that they mitigate between the insurance companies, they get people taken care of as rapidly as possible. Time becomes a real issue for a lot of people when something like this happens. The more quickly you can get them back into housing, get them back into the routine of their life, the better things will go. So we saw when we were over at the middle school, we saw a number of insurance agents that were there. You know, State Farm was there. I think there were a couple other insurance companies that were there trying to make sure that people got what they needed as quickly as possible.
Last question, please.
Governor, what are your thoughts on moving air tankers to other fires where structures aren't threatened or lives?
That is a decision that I will leave to the Fire Service. I think those decisions generally are made based on a level of comfort that they have this situation under control. Certainly where their structure is at risk. I don't think they'd move them if they didn't feel that a fairly strong level of comfort that the situation is under control. I'm not a fire expert any better than I am a lawyer, so I can't really address it. But I do think that they're not going to put people's homes at risk needlessly.
Thank you, everybody.